Want to Jump Like Dee Dee with me, Giles Sibbald, is the music podcast that does music a bit differently. I'm talking to some incredible musicians, DJs and producers about how they use an experimental mindset to fuel their own creativity, pursue new challenges, overcome fears, bounce back from mistakes. Two of my favourite things about this podcast. Firstly, I get to meet some really amazing artists, sometimes by design, sometimes by chance, and also get to really understand about what makes them who they are. Secondly, I also get to see how these artists have evolved over the years, which is just endlessly fascinating for me. My guest today has been releasing music since around 2008, and her musical evolution is really fascinating. From the sweeter pop of her sort of debut Selector through to 2014's 1888 and 2016's Perfect Shadow, which are both really exciting pieces of work with these kind of like huge soundscapes, through to a film soundtrack for Not to Be Unpleasant, But We Need to Have a Serious Talk. Kid Moxie now has a new album out in June, I'm going to say, and it's called Better Than Electric. She's released 3 absolute bangers so far of this kind of shimmering cinematic pop that's laced with these sort of dense layers of dark underground opulence that really reminds me of the kind of the sort of decadence of the 80s that's almost sort of set in the futuristic 2020s at that time, if that makes any sense. I'm sure it really doesn't, because I don't think it even makes any sense to me. Anyway, we're going to have a good old sort of chat about how her mindset helps her navigate through life, and obviously a bit about the music as well. So I'm really excited to welcome Elena to the show. Elena, thank you so much for coming on, and welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And wow, you've done your homework. You remember more about me than I do. So thank you for that.
You know, I've got one job to do, so I might as well sort of try and do it well.
Definitely.
But thanks for. So maybe, I mean, let's start with the new record, which is the first since the film soundtrack, I think, for from 2020. As I say, it's the 3 singles you've put out so far are fantastic. I love them.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, you definitely described them pretty accurately. They are kind of shimmering. They're kind of 80s neon retro futuristic. Feel to them, which is kind of my comfort zone. Not just comfort, but just exciting zone, really.
Yeah.
But it's where I've always kind of, that's where I live and breathe mostly regarding music. So all these 3, although I think they sound rather different in between them, they also kind of have a common denominator, which is sort of, a friend said it so well. A friend who's a journalist. She said, these are songs that remind me of the 80s, but unlike anything that was actually written in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is so true, because it carries the essence without actually being of the era. Which I was like, wow, I couldn't have said it better. So now I'm basically taking her description and making it mine, because I feel like that is so kind of what's up.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I sometimes, sort of think, okay, it's got this sort of vibe, but it's not exactly like that, which is how it should be, because you're putting your own sort of stamp on it. And I wonder that as your friend described it, if it's sort of 30, 40 years in the future with all these sort of lived experiences, and obviously there's some technology as well, but this 30, 40 years of different sort of living experiences that the world has had that sort of impacts how it actually then comes together. I don't know if I'm sort of over philosophizing it, but it's a different sound.
Yeah, and the retrofuturistic sort of element, whether it's in, like, sometimes I even get confused listening to it if I try to detach myself from it, which is a hard thing to do. But is it really of the past or is it of the future? But honestly, it's kind of elements of both, because I didn't experience the 80s firsthand, and I haven't experienced 2052 firsthand. And it's just kind of like feeling what it could have been like and feeling what it's going to be like, sonically speaking, in a way. I mean, obviously having references from the past, which are very much embedded in my sort of psyche
Mm.
almost. Um, so yeah, there's definitely stuff like that. I feel like I'm recycling so many things that I always love, like Blade Runner,
Yeah,
downtown Los Angeles at night, shimmering synths, Vangelis,
yeah.
Depeche Mode, like all that stuff has kind of like it's a big blob in my head and my heart that, and I can't tell you how it gets recycled, but I just know it does in everything I do
Mm.
pretty much.
I love that. Yeah, I totally hear. I mean, I kind of love I mean, I love thinking about the future. About these almost like kind of big concepts about what's happening in the world and how things might change, what things might look like. Um, and then I suppose we're always trying to relate it to sort of what we've sort of experienced or what we have grown up with or been exposed to sort of over the years, and that then makes it a kind of quite interesting sort of combination, I suppose.
Yeah, it's not even like intentional. I
Mm,
just,
it
it
just
just kind
happens.
of like pours out in you. It's kind of like you in your dreams, when you dream at night, you recycle stuff you've experienced or thinking you might experience. It's sort of the
Yeah.
same thing. It's a stream of consciousness that kind of
Mm,
merges past and future in a weird way that you can't really control, even.
mm,
I just
mm,
know that when I write something or when I hear something, I know when it clicks and it
mm,
reminds me of this generic sort of dream pop,
mm.
synth drenched neon sort of landscape that I'm always drawn to and maybe probably will always be.
I mean, it's maybe a good point to sort of go back to, sort of when you were growing up, when you were a kid, and how those influences sort of came about. I mean, what do you think were can you sort of pinpoint some of the moments when you thought, or this is what really kind of speaks to me?
I mean, there's definitely some key moments I'll remember from childhood and adolescence that definitely influenced me
Mm,
forever. Some of those are my parents taking me to a Jean-Michel Jarre concert, my first concert
wow,
as a kid
wow,
in the 80s. I don't really remember it. I was too little, but I
mm,
remember certain things about lights and synths and that
yeah,
it was fascinating and in Athens. And then I do remember watching films growing up like Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive that I was like, whoa, I don't know what the fuck this is exactly. I just know I want to be part of it or
yeah,
be it or recycle it or something. Or listening to a lot of Madonna and George Michael
mm,
um, growing up and just being sort of obsessed with the whole big pop element. So all these
mm,
things, and Depeche Mode came a little later for me, but it
mm,
it, it just kind of stuck for life.
yeah.
So all these things definitely are always prevalent and present.
Did your parents sort of have an influence in you on you musically, both in terms of what you were listening to and also kind of like encouraging you to get involved in music?
I mean, yeah, they started me with piano when I was like 3 years old
Yeah,
because I heard like I was walking somewhere with my mom and I heard a piano and I was like, oh, what is this coming from some living room? And she said, oh, do you want to do this?
yeah,
And she just kind of was like, well, let's take some lessons. And I just started onto the piano path and I was classically trained and did it for 12 years.
yeah.
Eventually hated it because it felt too rigid and structured. And I just kind of wanted to play drums or bass because my brother is a
That's,
drummer.
that's
So
fascinating.
so I left that all and
Mm,
started playing bass for people and other bands and
mm,
figuring out, I just want to kind of do it my way
yeah,
and make my own sort of music. And I guess I'll sing it. I didn't think I was going to be singing, but I was like, I might as well sing it because since I'm
mm,
making it, who else is going to sing it?
mm,
And and although I don't really think I'm a singer, like I don't,
mm.
people sometimes call me a singer and I'm like, that I don't feel like I singer. If I do feel like I make music, but I don't feel like a singer.
The singer.
I do
Yeah,
think my voice fits the particular style of music I'm doing,
yeah.
but it wouldn't fit something else. So it just kind of like,
Interesting.
in your question of if my parents influenced me, yes, they were both in bands growing up and in a band
Right.
together. And so there was a lot of classical music and a lot of Beatles and a lot of that stuff growing up.
Yeah.
And they were definitely encouraging, although they were very scared of me actually really doing this as a career.
Ah,
Um,
this is really interesting because like if I could just say that so when I was growing up, my dad was classically trained, and he I mean he sort of he was a really good singer, and he also sort of played the piano a little bit. Kind of like I think he was a bit of let's call him a wannabe pianist, but he was a great singer. He was and had a fantastic
hmm,
understanding of music, and he kind of really sort of pushed me. So I was classically trained like you were, but in the cello, and I played that until I was sort of 16, 17. And then I was just like, when you mentioned about sort of it felt a bit too rigid, or there was I felt like I'd sort of been pushed into this, and I kind of rebelled against that, and I was like, I'm not, I
hmm,
don't want to do this anymore. I kind of like
yeah.
the sort of angst of teen years, and I think, oh, I wish I'd not done that, but that's life, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. But also as a teenager, you're kind of forming your opinions for the first time
Mm,
and kind of want to, you feel like, wait, I didn't even remember how I started with that. I
mm,
was 3 or 4 years old. I don't remember getting into this. Why do I have to spend all this time and all
yeah,
this energy
yes, yeah,
maintaining it now?
totally,
You know?
yeah, totally.
So,
I felt like I
but
was
I
always
mean,
being dragged away from from my friends and the things that they were doing, and it was just like, caused
yeah,
a bit of resentment, I think.
yeah, same. Not fun. But looking back, I wish I hadn't stopped it because my
Mm,
level of training and piano playing would have been so much better. Right now, I am
mm,
worse than I was when I was 10, for sure.
mm,
Way worse. But honestly, I don't feel like composing needs me to be classically trained or needs me to read
yeah.
notation or I always do everything by ear and I like simple melodies. I'm
Mm,
never gonna be Rachmaninoff or somebody that can deliver such kind of intricate
yeah.
um,
I mean,
compositions. Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. I was going to say, I wonder if that a kind of a traditional training or doing getting qualifications and things like that maybe perhaps sort of limits you in your thinking. I mean, I suppose it depends on your personality anyway, but obviously what it's done for you is sort of frees you up to be kind of like ultra creative in the sort of music that you're writing and the influences that you're bringing in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I do feel like I'm lacking in certain ways. I do wish I had excelled more in my piano playing, and I wish I
Mm,
was still reading notation easily and fast. But ultimately, I'm not too worried about it for music
mm,
making. I really am not. And I do feel like there's a sort of freedom when you don't really abide by um, those sort of classical elements that
rules,
you
yeah.
gain in other areas. Hopefully,
Mm,
I mean, I'd like to at least tell myself that. So,
mm, yeah. Now if I've done my research properly, you, which is quite possible that I haven't, but you moved to San Francisco as a teenager. Um, did you feel a different? Well, obviously there was a sort of difference in environment, but how did you sort of adapt to that? To that sort of move. In terms of your mindset and sort of fitting in and kind of making new groups of friends. How did that all work out for you?
I mean, I always knew I wanted to be in the States. And
Mm,
I actually started at 17. I moved to London first for a couple of years, and then I moved to
okay.
San Francisco to finish my studies.
Mm,
I always knew I wanted to be in America because I just felt like, well, I was just mesmerized by what I was
mm,
obviously watching on film and also feeling like what I ultimately want to do, which I wasn't sure about at the time, but I knew it was in the arts and I knew it was in the performative arts,
yeah.
was going to get its big chance here and nowhere else in the world, really.
Yeah.
Um, so basically, I came here just kind of like to finish my studies, but really, my dream in the back of my head was I want to find a way to stay in the country and work and remain in the country.
Mm.
And I was so excited about it all that there was never really a struggle about fitting in. I was just kind of so excited to be here always
Yeah.
and kind of still feel the same way so
Mm.
many years later that it was never really, I mean, I was a foreigner, but San
Mm.
Francisco is really one of the most inclusive,
Yeah.
left-minded societies, if
Totally.
not the
Yeah.
most,
Mm.
um, in that I know of in the
Yeah.
world. So it never felt like an outsider.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so it wasn't really a challenge. It was just really exciting years of feeling like I'm a small fish in a massive
Yeah.
pond. And, but I quickly realized San Francisco was not going to be the place. I visited LA and I fell in love, and I was like, well, this is what I've always wanted to feel like living in a
Yeah.
city. And I moved here and I never really left since then.
What was it that kind of attracted you to LA? What was I mean, what kind of like feeling did it sort of give you when you
I mean, there's
first
certain
moved?
things that are concrete that I can
Mm.
tell you, and there's certain things I really haven't been able to put into words because there's an
Mm.
energy here and there's a feeling that it's
Yeah.
really palpable but hard to explain. I
Yeah.
do think it stems from the fact that people from all around the world come to this place to become something else. Like
Mm.
it's such a dream factory and it's such a kooky place, and you feel like you can be anything or anyone.
Interesting. Yeah.
And it's kind of like an illusion in many ways because not obviously everybody gets to be, you know, realize your biggest dreams. But at the same time, I prefer living in the illusion of it rather than
Mm.
a society that kind of says, just stay home, get married, get this kind of job,
Yeah.
especially as a female.
Absolutely.
Um, so it just felt very freeing. I guess the one word would be freeing and exciting and
Yeah.
boundless. Um,
It's
and
interesting what I think what cities give you, isn't it?
yeah,
That giving you that sort of can give you that sort of feeling of freedom. And I mean, I've been in London since 2008, so what we're saying like coming up for it'll be 14 years at the end of this year, and it's really like for me it was a place to kind of escape, and I've really noticed like my own sort of identity shifting over that period of
yeah,
time. you know, I,
absolutely.
and I feel a lot truer to who I think is the real me.
Yeah,
With the
yeah,
passage of time and sort of these different experiences and trying to be sort of open-minded about trying new things and seeing
yeah.
new music, theater, blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff, and the arts and culture. And it must be the same in LA as well.
Well, I feel like it takes us a long time to become who we are. I
Mm.
realized that in the last couple of years because I was feeling more like myself, whatever that means. I was just feeling true to myself,
Yeah.
more unashamed, actually, in
Yeah.
many ways about myself because we carry
Mm.
shame for certain things that we feel like don't fit in the norm. And
Mm.
so as time progressed, I felt less ashamed of certain parts of me, more open about them,
Mm.
and just kind of, and that was brought on into also what I do.
Mm.
I realized later, looking back, like Better Than Electric, for example, bringing it to the present, is the most probably honest, heartfelt album because I never really talked about stuff from, it was more cerebral, it was more hip and cool as far as lyrics, for example, go. Like, oh,
Mm.
this sounds nice, this sounds fun. Now it's
Yeah.
more like, "Oh, this sounds honest,
Yeah.
you know? So
I
I
get you.
definitely experienced that. And also just like not worried about what people think in general of
Mm.
me in many aspects of my life is something, it's an acquired
Has has that
quality.
has
Sure.
um has that worry or kind of anxiety about what people think, has that because this has bothered me over the years, for God knows how many years, and in some aspects it becomes crippling, that you
Yeah, of course.
can't do things, without sort of thinking about what other people think. I mean, has this been a big thing for you then?
Yeah, I mean, it has been,
Mm.
but it's something that I feel like I have worked on
Mm.
and it has served me to really kind of keep working on. I'm not saying I'm 100% there, but I'm definitely
Yeah.
in a better place, and it definitely feels liberating, and it feels more connected to me and what I do. I feel
Mm.
more, yeah.
With the new record, like you said, sort of being the most honest, um, recording that you've made. This presumably sort of feels the right time to start showing that to the world, I guess,
Yeah, and whether that's with lyrics or visuals
or
or
visuals.
how I really want to present myself in my videos,
Yeah,
um, like, sexuality and the
mm,
kind of exhibit of it or not, I was kind of shying away from showing sexual energy for a long
yeah,
time because I thought, oh no, I kind of want to be taken seriously. And then I thought, wait, why? Why
mm,
can you not be sexual and be taken seriously at the same time?
absolutely,
And
yeah,
that was fucking liberating by itself.
yeah, I
So
bet, yeah.
um
Because
yeah, that was
sometimes
a
we
big,
have these, like societal expectations, or not, what we perceive as societal expectations that just get drilled into us, and it becomes they become our handcuffs, that stop you
yes.
from being the true person. And like
Well,
you
there's
said,
boxes that we've been put on, and I'm always going back to like, wait, who the fuck created this box and why am I in it? Because you find
absolutely,
yourself in it by default.
absolutely,
And then you're like, wait,
absolutely,
wait, hold on, rewind.
yeah,
Who made this little box and why am I in it?
yeah,
You know, kind of
totally,
like go back to wherever that was, which is, something that's just so inherent in us that we don't know the chicken or the egg or
yeah. I completely agree with that. I mean, yeah, I think it's I don't know. I think our brains sort of like to compartmentalize things, or maybe we've been conditioned to compartmentalize things because it's easier. And I know that, I mean, the other thing that has been a thing of mine is in music in particular is sort of genres. How music is put in a box, in a particular sort of genre. And I think nowadays it's really difficult to do that because the kind of musicians are breaking out of that, and it's almost like a similar kind of thinking, isn't it? That you have to fit into this particular sort of box, and if you don't, then you kind of somehow you know not normal, and it's just not
yeah.
right.
And it's
Not
a
right.
shame, especially in the arts, because this is a profession you choose because it's almost like carving out an identity for yourself by choosing
Yeah.
something like this. And also,
Mm,
you better carve out an identity of yourself while you're kind of putting your mark in whatever
yeah.
art it is you're creating.
Mm,
So it's a shame that in a profession like that, you still find yourself abiding to certain norms and boxes. And
yeah.
that's kind of was extra um,
Mm,
weird to realize that I'm like, hey, I'm choosing to free myself by doing this thing, but yet I haven't really.
yeah.
So
I'm
here you
I'm
go.
really pleased that
Right?
you've done that. I
And I'm
think
still
that
doing
that
it, but I'm
yeah.
definitely way ahead than I was.
Yeah, I mean, I fully empathize with you on that. I've sort of faced the same. Of feeling that this is how I should behave, or feeling that this is, kind of, what I should look like, and things like that. And it's just, debilitating.
It
After a
is.
while, you
It
just
is. And
think
it's
I'm not
such a
living my life.
shame. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a shame.
You mentioned about your about kind of visuals, with your music as well, and obviously like your sonically your music is you know these sort of really kind of vivid kind of melodies, harmonies, and sort of layers, the kind of the soundscapes. I think sort of visually as well, you kind of bringing that in as well. I mean, how and I think I know the answer. How important is the visual representation of what you're doing as well?
Absolutely, very much important because
Mhm.
I always think in terms of scenes when I even write the song. So I
Yeah.
feel like it wouldn't do it justice if visually I wasn't
Mm.
taking care of it,
Mm.
that in that aspect. Um, so yeah, like Better Than Electric, the song that I did with Maps actually back
Yeah.
November, the first track from the album, was about a long distance love, was about merging with another person. So visually, I did want it to kind of carry that aspect of merging with somebody,
Yeah.
whether it's a real person or some kind of beautiful female alien
Mm.
entity, um, just to create sort of the dream and the illusion of becoming one with somebody,
Yeah.
whether it's a physical or sort of a emotional, spiritual experience. And lighting is really important. I feel like it carries the essence of a dream, how you light
Mm.
something. I'm not into realism in anything, really. I feel
Mm.
like that's easily accessible in our everyday lives. So why not create sort of like
Have something dream. Yeah.
a portal into something
Mm.
else, that
Mm.
is not accessible every day. And I like to think of songs that way, and I like to think of visuals that way, that you're accessing something else. And if you notice in the two songs that have come out, Shine and Better Than Electric, they're shot
Yeah.
sort of in this vortex-like environment. There is no time and place.
Yeah.
There is no essence of, oh, this is 2021 in Los Angeles. Like there is no place, there is no time. It's just sort of like emotions and feelings and colors and people acting out
Yeah.
in ways that probably you would want to, I would want to, or I have already, and I would want to again, or imagine that I will in those scenarios, like dreamlike scenarios.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, Better Than Electric, the song with James is amazing. I think it's really incredible. I think he's a great artist as well. I think he's
Yeah,
absolutely
no,
brilliant.
he's amazing. He's
Look,
amazing. And he's just such a great producer and
oh
has such a
yeah,
um
totally.
ear about everything. He's just, and as a person also, which is so important to
Yeah,
not be working with assholes. He's like the extreme
absolutely.
opposite of an asshole. He's like one of the sweetest guys I've ever
He's completely the opposite, isn't he?
worked
He's
with.
just yeah, he's just the best. He's a
Yeah,
great guy. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Did you know a little bit of a useless fact here? Just talking about the importance of visuals. Did you know that the inventor of the record cover? And I say this because because a lot of music now is digital, so kind of like physical record sleeve. I know vinyl's making a comeback, but a lot of people still stream. But the Alex Steinweiss, who's the inventor of the record cover, um, uh, when he first did that, I don't know if you know this, for it was a Beethoven symphony. Because he produced this sort of sleeve that was sort of visually kind of quite interesting, or certainly different to how vinyl had been packaged, the sales increased 800%.
Oh,
There you
yeah. I
go.
mean, no wonder. Yeah.
Really interesting. Anyway, I found it
Yeah.
interesting anyway. But
No, it is, and I completely believe in that.
I just think it sort of shows how sometimes you can like what you're saying about when you're writing something, you're visualizing it as well. I think that's really powerful thing to have as as a kind of in your mind, to be able to really do that. I think is really powerful.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't really, it was something that I just was doing by default. I am such
Mm.
a dreamer anyway. So starting to write, for example, on a Sunday night, and those synths, I'm like, oh, where is this taking place?
Mm.
This is definitely Los Angeles at night. And most stuff is for me because that's a place that really, the scenery is just really inspiring for me inherently.
Mm.
So, oh, but what am I doing in this? Oh, you're driving to somebody's house,
Mm.
or it's, and why are you doing that? I'm not even consciously asking myself these questions, but it's kind of like an atmosphere, and I set is slowly developing piece by piece with every sort
Mm.
of note
Mm.
or melody, and it just becomes very concrete at a
Yeah.
certain point, and I can't think of it as something else. Almost like it's just a particular, very particular feeling, mood, scene
Mm.
that is going on in my head. On a Sunday night, which is the latest one. The video is actually coming up at the end of May,
Mm.
is definitely, probably one of the most, it's not even a realistic video because I'm playing a chauffeur in it, in this white Cadillac
Okay.
that is roaming the streets of Hollywood at night and picks up different passengers, and some weird, or actually not weird, some beautiful exchanges happen between the passengers and between
Yeah.
me and the passengers. And so that was pretty much exactly the feeling while I was writing the song a year and a half
Mm.
before. So yeah, they walk hand in hand so much, the visuals and the music. They're very much united by a mutual concept and feel.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, you kind of like encouraging people sort of, to think and to, not necessarily, writing about realism, but about possibilities. Let's say.
I don't really care about thinking so much. I
Mm,
more care about feeling and being in
feeling.
another world. Yeah, I don't really care to think because
Mm,
all honestly, I'm not, for example, I'm not a Bob Dylan fan. I
mm,
think he's incredible, but I've never gotten into it because
yeah.
his music makes me think. And I kind
Right.
of feel like I just want to feel it, you know? I just want to
Mm,
feel it. So, an abundance of lyrics that have to do with, for example, society and politics, I find it extremely useful. It's just not going to be me that contributes
yeah.
that, you
Mm.
know? So, no, I don't really care if people think so much, but I just really want them to feel and get really into it. That would be the success element in what I do.
I guess yeah, that feeling is an interesting one as well about kind of what drives that. And sometimes I'm sort of interested in how, if you're talking about particular sort of chord change or chord sequence, how it kind of makes you feel, that causes these sort of physical reactions, when you hear that, and it just really sort of strikes in you.
Yeah.
I think
And
it's
you can't
so
explain
sort
it
of powerful.
because you can't think about it. It's more
Yeah,
like a
exactly.
physical reaction, like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm into this. I don't know what it is, but I'm into it. So
into it.
that's what I kind of want.
How do you in terms of your either your kind of musical life or just sort of life in general, how do you view success, or what does success mean to you?
Well, it means that I get to kind of create the musical identity that I really want,
Mm,
unrestricted, and at the same time, while being very much personal and being myself, I can make people feel something that's completely theirs,
mm,
whatever that may be. So by me being me, somebody can really be them.
yeah.
And obviously, I'm not saying, that money and success doesn't matter. It really does because you
Yeah.
want to keep sustaining your passion.
Yeah.
Because if your
Yeah.
passion is draining you and not feeding you
Mm,
financially, it will eventually turn against you. So
totally. Yeah.
financial success through it is very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being able to
Absolutely.
live through your art is success,
Yeah.
for sure. And it makes for just a better quality of life because you know how amazing it is to actually be sustained by what you love and
By
you're
what
not
you
doing
love.
it because you just have to and because you have to make ends meet.
Yeah,
Like
you've got
it
to
doesn't
live,
even
haven't you?
feel like a
Yeah.
job. Yeah.
No,
So that's
absolutely.
success.
I mean, that's a good feeling, isn't it? Sort of doing something that you really love. That people love it as well, and you're able to kind of live off it as well. I mean, that's kind of what
Yeah.
we
No,
want,
that's
isn't it?
perfect. That sounds like really great to me.
Yeah. I mean, uh the thing that another thing that I'm interested in as well is this kind of idea of relatability. About how people relate to your music, and this sort of authenticity. And I think just from listening to you, talking about that um with what you kind of represent, and so how you represent it sort of visually, people get a feeling from it, but also that with the new record that's coming out, with the sort of the honesty, that again, is what people are looking for. People are looking, in such a kind of polarized world. People are looking for kind of musicians, artists that have that authenticity. And I think that's really important. It's a word, I think it's a word that's used a lot, and
Yeah.
perhaps sometimes taken out of context. But I think if you look at it in what it really means, this is what you're doing and what you're living now.
Yeah, I'm definitely aspiring to that. And I definitely feel like people, whether they really understand what you're talking about or not, that they can
Mm,
definitely pick up on honesty, and they can definitely pick up on authenticity, even if
Yeah.
it's not their story. They can at
Yeah.
least be like, oh, this hits some nerve
Yeah.
because it feels raw and honest, you know?
I also think if you're feeling something and you're feeling inspired to write about something, that somebody else is going to be feeling that as well. You're not going to
100%.
you're not going to be alone, and it's going to have that appeal, and people will, like you say, it will hit a nerve, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, I can see that in myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's no, it's definitely something that you can't hide. If you're honest, it's just kind of so there for people to witness and pick up on.
Mm,
Same with being fake and trying to please or trying to do something just because you feel people are going to dig that, so I better do
yeah.
that. I feel that's kind of palpable too.
Would you call yourself a risk taker?
Um, I wouldn't in my past, but I feel like I've been more and more, yes, I
Mm,
really admire that quality and I've been aspiring to it and I feel like I'm closer to it than ever. So I feel like
mm,
the longer I keep doing this, the more risks I keep taking.
yeah. I mean, I guess that's it. It's a good thing to have in so many ways, isn't it? That sort of push you, you know, out of comfort zones, which is one of
Yeah,
the hardest things to do, isn't it? To do
yeah,
that, it's like, oh god, I can't
yeah.
do it. I can't face that.
I mean, I have been a risk taker all my life in terms of, moving to LA from
Yeah.
a small country and choosing to
Mm,
do something that's a very unstable
mm,
profession. So I have taken certain risks, but within my art, I feel
mm,
I could be taking even more,
mm.
and I
Wow.
will.
And you will be doing as
I
well.
will. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Elena, thank you so much for taking the time
That
out.
was so fast, honestly. That felt like 10 minutes. Wow.
Thanks for listening to the show, and I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll tune in for the next episode. In the meantime, it would be really awesome if you could rate and review the show and also share it with any friends who you think might enjoy it.